Good evening everyone, welcome to an Oz Cyclone Chasers update. Tonight the 22nd of February 2013. Obviously tonight's hot topic of conversation is the Western Australian tropical cyclone. Before we get into that, let's have a quick look at what's happening on satellite. Firstly, taking a look at some very active weather conditions here over the northeastern parts of New South Wales. We've got a subtropical low or an extratropical low out here off the northeast New South Wales coast. It's pushing out to the southwest and about to hit the coast if it hasn't hit already. Now that system has brought with it torrential rain. It's brought with it wind gusts of up to 130 kilometres an hour, multiple roofs off houses in this region. Pretty well approximating what we'd expect in a high-end Category 1 type tropical cyclone. The system isn't a tropical cyclone, but really the conditions felt on the ground not all that dissimilar to what we'd expect in a cyclone. Look, folks, that's going to continue heading inland a little bit further, and things should start to ease off hopefully sometime tomorrow. So, but really a very intense weather system. Over at Queensland, we've got a fairly strong upper level winds here associated with an upper level low and a trough feature as well. So the strong upper level winds would keep a lid on anything that tried to form out here in the Coral Sea over the next few days. So with that being said, though, we will look at the possibility of some very strong thunderstorms, possibly severe thunderstorms over here, particularly over the inland northern parts of Queensland. Probably likely to see some very good storm activity with the potential for some fairly severe activity, which for this time of year quite unusual for the far north. Normally we're in the monsoonal type pattern. We don't get time to see these really strong upper level winds pushing this far to the north. So certainly something to watch out for tomorrow is severe thunderstorms over northern Queensland. As we head into the money area, and the money area is out here, look at this. This monsoon trough is going off at the moment. Look at the convective activity all through this line. Embedded weak lows all through the monsoon trough. And the one that we've got to watch is the one here off the Kimberley coastline. That's going to push out to the west-southwest or southwest. It's going to form into a cyclone north of Port. And then what it does after that, at this stage, model guidance suggests that it's going to cross the Pilbara coast. It's going to cross the Pilbara coast as a fairly significant system, so Cat 3 plus according to most of the model guidance. So very interesting situation. If we take a look a little bit further south, now the reason we're looking a little bit further south is because this mid-latitude system, this low pressure area, along with its associated trough, is likely to impact and influence the system, the tropical cyclone that forms up here, in terms of its direction in the medium term. So in the 3 to 4 day period, we're going to see this trough line here influencing what this cyclone ends up doing, and how it recurves and hits the coast, and where it hits the coast will be determined by this system here. So very important little system down here, and all these little mid-latitude systems are very important when it comes to just looking at what happens to a tropical cyclone in the longer term. The Bureau of Meteorology is now starting to issue track maps on this particular tropical low. We can see it here, well to the northwest of the Kimberley coastline. Going to push, as I said, towards the west-southwest and eventually curve down towards the south and possibly south-southeast, but in the longer term, not quite sure. At this stage, look, we're favouring sort of the headland to Bidyadanga, this region here, for a coastal crossing, but it is a long way away, and so it won't take much change in the trajectory of this system to put Karratha into the firing line as well. So that's what the Bureau's at least thinking, that it's going to get to Cat 1 2 p.m. on February the 24th. That's 2 p.m. Western time, 4 p.m. Queensland time on February the 24th. But look at this grey area, big track error margin still, even out to 2 days. And so we do need to understand that if the system gets to the western edge of that track, then we see an increasing potential for the system to affect areas further to the west. So the Karratha, even as far as Onslow. It could be in the firing line if it heads west. If it heads a bit further east, interestingly, Broome could even be in the firing line. So that's the difference in the next 2 days. The trajectory of the system could have in its longer term strike potential. So at this point in time, though, if it follows the mid track here, we would expect a crossing probably somewhere to the east of Headland, but at, as I say, a lot of error margin even out to 2 days, so it's pointless for us to speculate out to 4 or 5 days, which is when landfall is expected. The Bureau's Tropical Cyclone Information Bulletin: the system should then approach the coast and develop, and there is a significant risk that this system will become a severe tropical cyclone and impact the Pilbara or West Kimberley early next week, probably the Tuesday to Wednesday period, probably closer to midweek. People in the Pilbara and Kimberley are advised to stay up to date with weather forecasts and warnings. So that's the latest information bulletin from the Bureau. So all systems go for this thing. It's no longer just a figment of our imagination. It has developed, it has formed, and now models are able to lock onto it a lot better than they have been. Speaking of models, let's get into them and let's have a look at them. We might start with the least accurate model today, and this is the no-gaps model. The no-gaps model shows us that the system will track in a southerly direction, drift to the west, and then smack the coast to the south. So that's the no-gaps model. It does have the system forming into a Category 2 tropical cyclone as it hits the coast between Karratha and Onslow. Look, at this stage, as I say, this is the least accurate model, but it is important that we go through and have a look at all the models and just to compare. Next up is the Canadian CMC, and it has an interesting scenario where the system is now going to drift almost directly towards the southeast. No sign of a southerly or southwesterly movement. Pretty well from where it is now. It pushes it southeast, crosses the coast around Bidyadanga, just to the south of Broome, as a Category 2 tropical cyclone. So that's a different scenario once again. The Canadian, once again, not very accurate, not in the top couple. But once again, for model comparison purposes, we do need to pay attention to it as well. The Bureau's 10-day forecast model, the Access Global model, and we have a look at it for tomorrow, out here to the north of the Pilbara coastline. Continuing to deepen north of the Pilbara on Sunday morning, deepening into probably a tropical cyclone near or just to the north of the West Pilbara coastline. Tuesday, that cyclone deepens further, sort of remains just off the coast in the West Pilbara. On Wednesday, the cyclone approaches the Pilbara coastline around Karratha to Onslow, and by Thursday morning, the cyclone has made landfall somewhere between Karratha and Onslow, or closer to Karratha at that point in time. So that's what the Bureau's 10-day model is suggesting. The GFS model has a southerly moving system, or a south-southeasterly moving system. Now, as we've said in the past in our previous updates, whenever we see a model that's suggesting this south-southeast or southerly movement, we start to pay close attention to the potential intensity of it, because systems off the Pilbara coastline that move in this direction have shown us time and time again that they develop extremely rapidly due to some favourable ingredients and favourable environmental conditions around them. So whenever we see this sort of track, it's a cause for concern, where it just pushes south-southeastwards throughout its entire forecast period. When we see that, we get concerned. There's a fair chance of some rapid intensification on that type of track. Now, the GFS model has the system crossing at about a 960 hectopascal type system, so we're talking a Category 3, significant Category 3 tropical cyclone right over Port Hedland. Right over Port Hedland, smack bang over the top of them. That's 10 a.m. this morning's model run. Okay folks, now we're getting into the nitty gritty. These are the more accurate models. This one here comes from the UK Met. The UK Met has a coastal crossing just to the west of Port Hedland as a significant Category 3 system, around about 960 to 970 hectopascals. So a severe tropical cyclone at Category 3 intensity. Once again, that concerning trajectory of south-southeast movement. That trajectory concerns us because we've seen time and time again rapid intensification on cyclones that follow this exact type of bearing or type of path. So a very concerning type of situation there. At the moment, the model though is only suggesting Category 3 intensity. Things can change with that though. So we've got the GFS suggesting Port Hedland, we've got the UK Met suggesting the Port Hedland area, and now time to have a look at the most accurate global forecast model. And of course, since it is the most accurate global forecast model, we will spend a bit more time on this one and talk you through what's going on. Alright, so 10 p.m. tonight, we've got a low pressure system pretty close to where the Bureau said it is. So the model's initialised it quite well. We've got very, very light winds around the actual low pressure circulation centre, so not much happening for it. As we head in towards tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Queensland time, we start to see it tightening up a little bit into a really at least a formal low pressure centre or circulation centre, and we've got wind starting to wrap around it now a lot tighter. And as we head towards Saturday night, we start to see those winds intensify. So this yellow suggesting 23 to 28 knot winds, and we've got some very strong monsoonal winds coming in from the north as well. So we need to pay attention, because as they start to get in towards the centre of the system, we're going to see the system ramp up in intensity pretty quickly. And as we head towards Sunday morning, and we track this system, we see those monsoonal winds now starting to wrap around at least half of the system, or close to half of the system. So by Sunday morning, it's pretty close to being a tropical cyclone, but these winds are just not tight enough around the centre, so perhaps not quite yet. As we head towards Sunday afternoon and evening, though, we start to see those winds wrapping around a lot tighter. We're probably going to see it named on Sunday night. This is 10 p.m. Queensland time. So we've probably got what we're seeing there, a tropical cyclone. And if we look also at some of the other conditions that are going to be present, the first thing we look for is wind shear. Wind shear is the change of direction or speed of the winds with height in the atmosphere. And cyclones will only develop in the purples, the reds and the blues. And you can see here that the entire region is just perfect in terms of wind shear. So there is absolutely nothing in the environment that's going to be holding this back. The next thing, once the shear, once we've cleared the wind shear, is we need to know if there's enough moisture in the atmosphere. And we look at the humidity profile of the atmosphere, and cyclones will only develop in the blues when it comes to humidity. So if there's any purple in that map around the center of the system simply won't develop. And we can see here where the system's located Sunday night, it's in a great area of very, very high humidity levels in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. So the system is absolutely all guns blazing, ready to go, ready to explode, starting Sunday night. So everything is going in its favour on Sunday night. And as we track in towards Monday morning, we'll see the system tighten up. You can see the wind speeds here starting to ramp up, 35 to 40 knot in places. And as we head towards Monday night, once the system starts to consolidate, we've got 35 to 40 knots. Now it's a nice, tight, symmetrical looking system. It's still only a Cat 1 or 2 at this stage in time, Monday night, but it's really looking a lot better. And we start to see now definite Cat 2 by Tuesday morning, and it's making its approach towards landfall. And as we head towards Tuesday night, this is 10 p.m. Tuesday night, you can see here increasing intensity. We're starting to get winds of 50 to 60, 60 to 70 knots even on the northwestern edge of the semicircle, northwestern edge of the eye. And if we have a look as the system approaches landfall, let's take a look at what's happening with wind shear now on Tuesday night. And we can see overall wind shear not too bad at all. So over most of the area, it's reds and purples. There is a little bit of increasing wind shear to the north of the system, but look, a lot of that is actually due to the system itself actually disrupting the flow of the atmospheric winds, which they will do when they get deeper. And so overall wind shear very good. The other big killer of cyclones at this point in time is that dry air that we talked about. So let's have a look at dry air on Tuesday night. You can see some dry air well to the north of the system, but nowhere near the circulation centre. So this system is still all systems go as it pushes in towards the coast on Tuesday night. So if we have a look at its central pressure at that point in time, we can see that the system is probably around about 950 to 960 hectopascals on its approach to the coastline. And as we head then towards the landfall time frame of Wednesday morning. This is Wednesday at 4 a.m. at the moment. The model's got at 4 a.m. Queensland time, so 2 a.m. WA time. The model has got it just to the northeast of Port Hedland, and if we start to overlay some place names here for you and start to zoom in a little bit, you can see here Port Hedland, South Hedland, and you can see where the system lies in relation to that. Pardue looks like it's fairly close to the hot spot there, and the system continues on a track to the south-southeast, crosses the coast sometime between sort of 5 a.m. WA time and 8 a.m. WA time. But as I say, remember, this is now looking into Wednesday, so we're looking a long way ahead, folks. But I just wanted to show you that overall the atmosphere is suggesting that the system will have almost ideal conditions to continue to develop on its approach to landfall. Okay, now we're going to look quickly at the steering flow and why the system is going to track westwards before it tracks southwards. And we've got this. We're looking now 5 kilometers above the level of the surface of the Earth. We're looking into the mid levels and the upper levels. This is stuff you don't get on your weather chart at home. So this is an upper level high. Now, if a low pressure or cyclone is in this region, the upper level high will try to push it in that direction towards the west. Tropical cyclones will not push directly in towards those upper level highs. They'll try to ride them out to the west. Alright, but in here, interestingly, is that, remember when I showed you the satellite image, we had a very strong low pressure system and associated trough. Let's watch what that does, because that will eventually become the guide to steer this system out to the south, and also will actually help to intensify the system as well as it does that. So if you remember, that high was trying to steer the system out to the west. That high has since weakened and it's pushed a little bit more into central parts of Australia, and so the system will then start to track in a very, very weak steering environment. So don't expect too much movement too fast at this point in time. What's interesting is this little upper level trough, which will start to what we call amplify. Basically, it just means that it starts to push up more towards the north and will try to capture the system, or at least guide the system, in a south or southeast direction as it does that. This is on Sunday. Let's have a look what happens on Monday. And the answer is not much. Once again, on Monday, that upper trough hasn't quite established itself or developed or amplified northwards, and so we have the system still remaining almost stationary, just drifting around aimlessly for the time being on Monday as well. Just out of interest, when a cyclone does drift around aimlessly, it does always try to push a little bit towards the south. And that's what we've seen. Now, interestingly, here on Tuesday, this little trough, you can start to see it just starting to take shape here. And just starting to influence at least the southern part of WA, and its tentacles, its northern extent, may just touch this system and just increase those northwesterly upper level winds, which will start to drift this system in a south-southeast direction. Now, the other thing that this trough will do, as long as it stays reasonably weak, it'll actually enhance an outflow channel, and that allows all the thunderstorms at the top to escape the cyclone, to escape the cyclone's middle, and allows, basically creates like an exhaust. Think of an exhaust in your car, and imagine if you plug the muffler. Same thing here. If the muffler's plugged, the car will, the car cannot work efficiently. Same thing with a cyclone. If we unplug the muffler and allow that waste to escape, the car works a lot more efficiently. Same thing with a cyclone. If we allow those tops of those storms to escape, the cyclone becomes more efficient at reproducing thunderstorms and producing them stronger. And so that's what's happening in this image. We're seeing that the cyclone is starting to intensify on the Tuesday, and also we're starting to see it start to push towards the coast, south or south-southeast. And by Wednesday, the system hits the coast as it travels towards the south or south-southeast. And as we said, it hits the coast around about that Pardue region, according to this particular model. But what we do see underneath the system now is that whatever was there in terms of troughing is now weakened out completely, and we're starting to see a little bit of a ridge take shape. So this brings us into a very interesting scenario after the system crosses the coast, because we may actually find that this upper trough will guide it towards the southeast for a little while, and then what will happen is, if a ridge builds in underneath it, it may push it back out towards the southwest in the longer term, extremely long term now. So very high doubt in terms of what it'll do afterwards. But look, if this sort of scenario does eventuate, don't be surprised if it pushes to the south after making landfall, and then pushes back out here to the southwest or to the west, and possibly gets close to the coast here, creating a lot of shower activity and storm activity, rain activity even, that you wouldn't expect this time of year. All right, folks. Well, we're not even going to try going that far because we're already speculating going out to this far. But look, overall, we've got fairly good model consensus. There's going to be a Pilbara impact at this stage in time. All the models are suggesting this, but it just varies between Onslow all the way through to Bidyadanga, as we showed you in all the different model runs. So we can't really narrow it down more than that at this point in time. I'm sure we'll be able to do that in, say, 36 to 48 hours time. There will be no video update tomorrow night. I have rugby league commitments in Cairns, so I won't be able to issue the video updates, but our team will keep you up to date with what's going on using our social media, our Facebook. If you have an Android phone, you'd like to purchase our app, that goes a long way to help supporting us, but it will also keep you in the loop with what's going on because it has automatic live updates from our Facebook feeds and from any other feeds that we might be communicating through. Thanks very much, folks, and we'll talk to you again on Sunday night.